It all started with a single sentence that twisted something deep in my gut. "You need to cancel that dress order. It's not appropriate for our family." Those words didn't come from my fiancé, Nathan. They came from his mother, softly spoken, as if they were a kind suggestion. But her eyes didn't match her tone. Cold, judgmental. Like I had just failed some test I didn't even know I was taking. I was standing in their family living room, still holding the catalog in my hand, the page with my dress circled 3 times in pink highlighter. I had shown it off like a proud child, expecting excitement, applause, maybe a teary smile. Instead, I got this. I blinked at her. "Excuse me?" Nathan stood nearby, awkwardly adjusting his watch, like he wished he were invisible. His mother didn't flinch. "It's not about you. Our traditions are different. That style, well, it's just not what we imagined for someone marrying into our name." Our name. Like it was some royal dynasty and I was a peasant girl with mud on my shoes. The silence stretched between us. I could hear the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. A strange panic started to rise, quiet and creeping. This was supposed to be a happy visit. Just me showing them the dress I had finally decided on after months of second-guessing myself. "I don't understand," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice from cracking. "You mean the style? Or the color? Or—" She gave a tight smile. "Sweetheart, you're a lovely girl. But our family's image matters. The dress you picked, it's very loud. We want something classic, elegant, modest." I looked at Nathan. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Nathan," I asked, my voice sharper now, "do you agree with this?" He rubbed his temples. "Babe, maybe we can look at other options just to keep the peace." And just like that, the floor beneath me shifted. It felt like betrayal in real time. And yet I smiled. That's what I do when I'm upset, I smile. Trained behavior from years of smoothing over conflict and biting back tears. "I see," I said, folding the catalog closed. My hands were shaking slightly. That night, lying in bed at home, I couldn't sleep. My fingers hovered over my phone. The dress confirmation email was still unread, glowing in my inbox like an unopened treasure. I had paid for it in full. Custom design. Non-refundable. But the thought of showing up on my wedding day wearing a gown that made his mother whisper and glare made my stomach churn. Was I marrying Nathan or his entire family? No. Was I marrying someone who would stand up for me? That question buzzed in my head like a wasp I couldn't swat away. I replayed the conversation over and over again. Her voice so calm, his silence so loud. My own stunned confusion. And underneath it all, the feeling that something wasn't right. That this wasn't just about a dress. My best friend, Layla, called me the next morning, bubbly as ever. "So? Did they love it?" I paused. "They asked me to cancel it." There was a beat of silence, and then a low whistle. "What?" "They said it wasn't appropriate. It's not modest enough for their family's image." Layla groaned. "Girl, you're not marrying the Vatican. It's your dress. Your day." "I know." But Nathan didn't defend me. He just stood there. Layla didn't respond right away. I knew that silence. The one where she was holding back an opinion because she didn't want to seem pushy. "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "Do you love him?" she asked softly. I hesitated. "Yes, but..." "But," she echoed. That "but" was a crack in the wall I'd been pretending was solid. I got off the phone and stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked calm, but inside, I was unraveling. Because it wasn't just about the dress, it never is. It was about control, expectations, boundaries. What would come next? The cake flavor? The guest list? The vows? And if I gave in now, would I be setting the tone for my entire married life? I went to my closet and pulled out the sketches I had saved, the earliest drafts of my wedding dress. They were bold, regal, a little untraditional, sure, but me. Every curve of fabric felt like a small rebellion against everything I had been told to shrink down for. That's when it hit me. A strange, electrifying idea. I sat down on the edge of my bed, heart pounding. I wouldn't cancel the dress order. I'd do something better. I didn't cancel the dress order. I didn't argue. I didn't even tell Nathan what I was planning. Instead, I played along. For 2 weeks, I pretended to be the obedient bride-to-be they wanted. I smiled through dress consultations with Nathan's sister, nodded politely while his aunt emailed me Pinterest boards full of beige lace and timeless gowns. They thought I was giving in. But behind the scenes, I was crafting a plan. I reached out to the original designer, Angela Dale, a legend in bridal couture and the same woman who had poured her soul into making my custom gown. I explained everything. The pressure, the family, the silent fiancé. And then I asked the big question. Can we modify the design? Make it reversible? Angela was quiet for a long time. And then she let out a laugh, low, mischievous. Oh, honey, she said. You want a dress with a secret? I smiled. Exactly. We got to work immediately. I poured my heart into every email, every sketch, every tweak. On the outside, the gown would be simple, soft, conservative even. Something that would earn approving nods from his mother. But hidden underneath was me. Layers of silk and embroidered passion. A back panel that unbuttoned into a dramatic train. Sleeves that slipped off with the flick of a clasp. And best of all, a hidden message stitched inside the lining in gold thread. My grandmother's favorite quote. A quiet woman is never without her thunder. It became my mantra. Meanwhile, Nathan stayed oblivious. We'd meet up after work, go over seating charts or song choices. He kept saying how proud he was that I was compromising, that it meant a lot to his family. And each time, I nodded and smiled like a mannequin. But my heart was starting to drift, because every time I looked at him, I couldn't shake the feeling that something vital was missing. A spark, a spine, something. It all boiled over 2 weeks before the wedding. We were at his parents' house again for dinner. The topic of the ceremony came up, specifically my vows. Nathan's mother gave a little laugh. Oh, you'll be keeping them short, won't you? We don't really do long, emotional speeches in our family. I looked up from my salad. Excuse me? She waved her hand airily. It just tends to get too sentimental. We prefer something simple, traditional, 2 minutes max. Nathan didn't say a word. That was the moment I snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in a cold, quiet way that made the room drop a few degrees. No, I said, calmly placing my fork down. I'll be saying my vows. In full. As planned. His mother blinked. I just meant. I know exactly what you meant, I interrupted. But this is my wedding, too. Nathan cleared his throat. Babe, just let's not make it a thing. You know how my mom gets. It's not worth arguing over. Not worth arguing over? That was when it hit me like a thunderclap. He wasn't afraid of conflict. He was afraid of his mother. And worse, he was okay with me taking the blows to avoid it. That night, I stared at the engagement ring on my finger for hours. Not crying, not panicking, just thinking. Did I love him? Yes. Was he a bad person? No. But was he going to fight for me? I already had my answer. The next morning, I sent him a message. Not a breakup text. Not a cancellation notice. Just a simple, loaded sentence. Meet me at the fitting studio this Saturday. No excuses. He responded with a thumbs-up emoji. Saturday came like a storm. I arrived early, dress already prepped on the mannequin. Angela was there, sipping espresso with a grin, clearly enjoying the drama unfolding around her. I've never made a gown with armor built into it, she joked. You're a force, girl. Nathan arrived 10 minutes late, looking confused. Why are we meeting here? I gestured to the dress. I want you to see it. The real one. He frowned. I thought you canceled it. I didn't, I said flatly. I lied. He blinked, processing. Why? Because I needed to know if you were on my side. If you'd protect me the way you always say you will. Silence. His expression shifted, hurt, then defensive. You think I haven't protected you? I think you've avoided conflict. And I think that's not the same thing. He looked at the gown, now fully revealed on the mannequin. The two-sided masterpiece. The dress that could transform in under a minute. I compromised. I continued. More than I should have. But I won't give up who I am to please anyone. Nathan took a breath. So what now? You want to cancel everything? I looked him in the eyes. No. I want you to decide what kind of husband you want to be. Because I know the kind of wife I'll be. Strong. Honest. Unapologetically myself. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he whispered, I don't know if I can stand up to her. To them. My heart sank. Not because he said it, but because I knew he meant it. That was all I needed to hear. I didn't cry when I walked out of that fitting studio. I didn't call anyone. I didn't scream or break down or beg him to reconsider. I just walked. And as I walked, I felt every step carrying me further away from who I was supposed to be and closer to who I really was. I thought I'd be shattered. I thought I'd feel regret. But the truth? I felt free. It was like I had been holding my breath for months, maybe even years, and suddenly my lungs remembered how to work again. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, wearing the dress. Not for anyone else. Just for me. The soft outer layer brushed my skin like a whisper, but it was the hidden version, bold, daring, fierce, that made me gasp at my own reflection. I didn't just look like a bride. I looked like a warrior cloaked in silk. The next morning, I wrote letters to everyone. To Nathan, I hope one day you find the strength to use your voice. Because love without protection is just decoration. To his mother, thank you for showing me how small someone can try to make another person feel. To myself, you didn't break. You bloomed. I didn't cancel the wedding venue. I didn't ask for the deposit back. Instead, I threw my own celebration. No groom. No white lies. No compromise. Just truth. And power. And the people who loved the real me. I sent invitations to my friends. My cousins. My college professor, who taught me to write my truth. Even Angela, who showed up in a midnight blue pantsuit and brought champagne like she already knew this would happen. When the day came, I walked into that venue in the dress. The real version. The one that had caused so much drama, so much tension, but also held every ounce of my strength stitched into every thread. People gasped. They clapped. They cried. Not because of a fairy tale, but because they were witnessing something far rarer. A woman choosing herself. I gave a speech that day. Not vows. Not a love letter to someone else, but a promise to my own soul. I spent too long being afraid of what people would say if I chose myself first. I was taught that being a good girl meant being agreeable, soft, small. But I've learned something. A woman doesn't have to shrink herself to be loved. The right love will expand to meet her. There was silence. And then a roar. After the celebration, I walked alone through the garden behind the venue. I didn't feel lonely. I felt anchored. And then, I heard a voice. Nina? I turned. It was Nathan. He stood there, looking unsure, hands in his pockets, suit wrinkled like he'd been running. I heard about the event, he said softly. I didn't expect this. I smiled gently. I didn't either. But it turns out I needed it. He looked around at the glowing lights, the laughing guests, the flowers that danced in the breeze. You did all this by yourself? No, I said. I did it for myself. But not by myself. He nodded slowly. You look different. I am different. A pause. Then he said, I wish I'd spoken up more. I know. I still love you. I felt the words land, heavy but not painful. I believe you, I replied. But love without action is just noise. He looked down, then back at me. You're not angry? No. I'm just awake. He let out a breath, like he'd been holding one of his own for far too long. I'm proud of you, he said, voice cracking. Even if I wasn't strong enough to stand with you. I nodded. Maybe someday you will be. And with that I walked past him. Not away. Not toward anything else. Just forward. It had been a few days since the celebration. The pictures were still circulating online, people tagging me, messaging me things like, "You're my hero," or "You gave me the courage to leave." At first, it felt surreal. I didn't set out to make a statement or go viral or start a movement. I just wanted to wear my dress. But apparently, the act of a woman reclaiming her moment was revolutionary. I walked into the boutique a few days later, not as a confused bride-to-be, but as the woman who had finally stood up for herself. Angela met me with open arms. "You're a legend around here now," she said, smiling wide. I laughed. "Is that right? People are talking. About you. About the dress. About the choice you made." I looked around at the racks of gowns. White, cream, off-white. All symbols of what we're told a wedding should look like. But the dress I had worn? It was fire and softness. Gold thread and rebellion. Angela motioned for me to follow her. She took me to the back room where it had all started. "Someone came in asking if we could make a version of your dress," she said. "Actually, several people. Turns out, they don't want to be hidden anymore." My eyes stung a little, but I held it in. Not because I didn't want to cry, but because I had cried enough. Now it was time to build. That same week, I got an email from a small publication that focused on women's empowerment. They wanted to feature the story of the bride who married herself. I almost didn't reply, but something inside me whispered, "Say yes." So I did. The article went up. The story spread. And suddenly, I was getting invitations to speak at workshops, bridal expos, even community events. People didn't want to talk about weddings. They wanted to talk about freedom, about truth, about the moment they knew they couldn't keep pretending. And then one afternoon, there was a letter in my mailbox. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a handwritten note. "Nina, I owe you an apology for trying to control what wasn't mine to own. I see now that I didn't protect my son. I enabled his silence. And I tried to project my fear onto you because I saw your strength and didn't know what to do with it. You were right to walk away. I hope you never stop walking forward. Margot." I held the letter close to my chest for a while, not because it changed anything, but because it showed me that even the people who tried to break you can sometimes learn from you. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, the version of myself who almost crumbled under the pressure of being the good fiancé became a memory. One day, I found myself sketching designs again. Not wedding dresses, power dresses. Gowns with armor-like corsets and flowing fabrics that screamed defiance. Angela helped me pitch the idea to her boutique owner. They agreed to let me launch a small collection under the name Unveiled. The tagline? "Not every bride is waiting for a groom." The collection sold out in days. And in every fitting room, I met a woman with a story. A woman who had almost shrunk herself for the sake of someone else's comfort. A woman who said, "I saw your story and I chose differently." Sometimes I still think about Nathan. I wonder if he ever found the courage to speak, to fight, to protect. But I don't dwell on it. Because I'm not waiting for someone else to validate my voice anymore. This journey was never about revenge. It was about returning to myself. The girl who once twirled in the mirror, imagining a dress that made her feel like she could conquer the world. She's not a dream anymore. She's me. And as I zip up the final gown for a client, watching her glow in her reflection, I whisper the words I now live by. You are not too much. You were just never meant to be less. A year had passed. Not in silence. Not in heartbreak. But in a roar of rediscovery. I didn't just survive the wreckage of that relationship. I built something beautiful from its ashes. The Unveiled collection had gone national. More boutiques picked it up. More women reached out, sending photos from their own liberation ceremonies. Some were brides-to-be who left toxic fiancés. Some were divorcees reclaiming their image. Some were women who simply wanted to wear something powerful on a Tuesday. Each story was a mirror, and every reflection told me, "You did the right thing." Then one day I got an email. Subject line, "Please read this, if only once." It was from Nathan. I stared at it for a long time before I opened it. "Hi, Nina. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I've spent the last year thinking about that day, about what I didn't do, about how I stood there and watched you leave without stopping you. Not because I didn't love you, but because I was too ashamed of how little I had defended you. I've been in therapy. I'm trying to understand the things I allowed to happen, the ways I failed you. I won't make excuses. I know I let you down. You were brave. You did what I couldn't do. And I respect you for that more than you know. I don't expect forgiveness. But I needed you to know. I see it now. Everything you tried to show me.
I'm sorry.
I didn't cry when I read it. I didn't get angry either. I just sat there, quiet, at peace. Because I realized in that moment, I wasn't carrying it anymore. The guilt.
The shame.
The what if I had just stayed quiet loop that once played in my head?
Gone.
I wrote back only 2 sentences. Thank you for saying that. I truly hope you find your voice, too. And I meant it. Because healing wasn't about waiting for someone else to be sorry. It was about deciding that I didn't need their sorry to move on. Months later, a fashion editor invited me to give a TED-style talk at a women's empowerment conference. I called the speech, "When the dress isn't just a dress." I stood in front of hundreds of women, some in the audience holding hands, others wiping tears before I even began. I told them everything. About the silence, the tension, the subtle control that nearly erased me, and how I found my voice again in the shape of a gown that no one approved of but that felt like me. At the end, I walked off stage in a brand new version of that golden dress, redesigned for movement and strength. A suit dress hybrid that whispered, "I don't need to be chosen to be powerful." Backstage, a young woman ran up to me. "Your story, it changed me," she said, breathless. "I called off my wedding last week. I realized I was trying to become someone I wasn't, just to make his family like me." I took her hands. "You're not alone." She nodded, eyes glistening. "Thank you for going first."
That hit me.
Thank you for going first. Maybe that's what this whole thing had become about. Not just one woman's rebellion, but a ripple. And it didn't stop. The boutique eventually offered me a creative director position. I accepted, but only on one condition. We create a line for all women, single, married, divorced, in transition. No more labels. No more boxes. Just expression. Our motto? The vow you make to yourself is the most sacred one of all. Today, I design more than dresses. I design declarations. And every time a woman slips into one of my pieces and looks at herself in the mirror with tears in her eyes, I remember the moment I almost gave it all up for their approval. And I thank God I didn't. I still have that original gold dress. It's displayed in my studio. Not behind glass, not protected like some fragile thing, but hung boldly on the wall, like a flag. A reminder that one choice, one stand, one voice can change everything. And just when I thought the chapter had closed, I received a letter. A formal one. Stamped. From the very venue where I was supposed to get married. Apparently, they had seen my story online. Read the article. Saw the talk. One of the board members had even attended. And they wanted to do something unprecedented. They were offering to host an event. Not a wedding, but a self-vow ceremony. Open to anyone who wanted to declare love to themselves. I smiled as I read the final line. We believe that every great love story should start with the one in the mirror. And that's when I knew this wasn't just my story anymore. It was ours.